Welcome. Tonight, you re-invited to drift gently back through time, far beyond the glittering myths and merchant tales, to a world that once pulsed quietly along the veins of ancient trade. This is the Silk Road, not as the legends often tell it, but as it truly was: vast, slow, dusty, and full of small human rhythms. A network that stretched like a spider's web across mountains and deserts, connecting lives and landscapes so distant that many never even knew the other existed. As you listen, you might imagine yourself somewhere along that endless trail, the crunch of sand underfoot, the soft creak of leather harnesses, the wind whispering through thin canvas tents. The stars above you are countless, and time feels slower than ever before. We'll all wander quietly tonight through 4 chapters of this world, from the humdrum details of daily life along the Silk Road, to the stories of people who shaped it, to the mysteries buried beneath its dust, and finally, to the shimmering courts and distant empires that profited from its hidden arteries. Let the journey unfold gently. There's no rush here, only the soft rhythm of history, moving one slow footstep at a time. Imagine waking before dawn in a cold desert camp. The horizon is still gray, and the air holds that delicate chill just before sunrise. Around you, a caravan stirs to life, not hurriedly, but with the unhurried precision of routine. Men and women move through the dim light, checking straps and tightening knots. A pot of thin porridge simmers over a small fire, the smoke drifting gently upward, disappearing into the pale sky. The camels kneel patiently, their long lashes blinking against the sand-laden wind. Somewhere, a trader hums softly, an old tune, perhaps, or simply a rhythm to keep his hands steady. This was the daily beginning for countless travelers, merchants, monks, migrants, and wanderers, all following the ancient arteries of trade that would one day be called the Silk Road. But to them, it was not a road. It was life itself. They traveled slowly, perhaps 20 kilometers a day, depending on the weather. Each morning began with the same careful dance, feeding the animals, folding blankets, wrapping goods in thick layers of cloth, and setting out before the sun could burn too fiercely. Silk, yes, but also spices, glassware, tea, ivory, even paper. All moved along these trails, and so did stories. News of kings, wars, or strange new gods, whispered between camps and across languages, carried not by diplomats, but by the hands of ordinary traders. By midday, the sun would be relentless. You might picture the traders walking beside their camels, cloaked and veiled, their faces hidden from the dry wind. The air shimmered like molten metal above the sand. They said that mirages sometimes danced in the distance, phantom lakes that promised relief, then vanished. The road itself could be treacherous, loose sand that shifted beneath the animals' feet, or mountain paths so narrow that 2 beasts could barely pass. Yet for all its hardship, there was an order to it. Caravans rarely traveled alone. They joined others, forming long, slow-moving chains of people and beasts. Safety lay in numbers. At night, when the firelight flickered and the stars began their silent watch, the road felt almost kind again. You can almost see it. A circle of faces illuminated by the orange glow, bowls of rice and lentils shared between strangers, hands cupped around warm tea. Languages mingled: Persian, Chinese, Sogdian, Arabic, Turkic, each word softened by fatigue and laughter. Someone might bring out a lute or a flute, playing low, meandering melodies that rose and fell like the dunes themselves. There were no borders out here, only shifting sands and the unending horizon. Still, each group carried fragments of home, spices from India, scrolls from China, woven rugs from the steppes, and, perhaps most precious of all, stories. Imagine yourself lying back on a rolled blanket, watching the stars ripple faintly overhead. You'd feel the ache of the day in your legs, the quiet of exhaustion setting in. Around you, the camp breathes, The soft snort of a camel, the creak of rope, the steady rhythm of life continuing, night after night, step after slow step. And yet, amid the dust and monotony, there was beauty. The moon rising above the desert was not something anyone could ignore. Its pale glow turned the dunes into waves of silver. For those who spent their lives here, the desert was not empty. It was alive with small, familiar details. The tracks of foxes, the whisper of sand sliding down a slope, the comfort of routine. The Silk Road was not one road, but thousands, twisting through oasis towns, icy passes, and sea routes. But at its heart was always this: people, ordinary and weary, carrying the weight of goods and dreams alike. Sometimes, in the quiet moments between camps, they must have wondered what lay beyond the next horizon. Was the world endless? Or was it all connected, one vast circle of movement and exchange? As the night deepens, imagine a fire burning low. The murmurs fade. Somewhere in the distance, another caravan might be lighting its own campfire, unseen but not alone. The Silk Road continues, endless, patient, and softly breathing beneath the same stars. And as the caravans continue their slow progress, we begin to meet the people behind the movement, figures whose choices, ambitions, and quiet perseverance shaped the story of this ancient world. Long before the Silk Road became the network we know today, it began with one man's quiet, determined journey. His name was Zhang Qian, a Chinese envoy who lived during the Han Dynasty, more than 2,000 years ago. Imagine him now, as dawn breaks over the walled city of Chang'an, the capital of the Han Empire, and the starting point of the road that would one day link east and west. The air smells faintly of smoke and freshly dampened earth after a night's rain. A thin mist curls around the gates as soldiers prepare for departure. Zhang Qian stands among them, dressed in layers of fine silk and wool, a bronze clasp fastening his cloak. He carries not a sword, but a scroll, the emperor's command to explore lands beyond the known borders. It was 138 BCE, and the Han Empire wanted to reach the mysterious Yuezhi people to the west, hoping to form an alliance against the Xiongnu nomads who raided their frontiers. But beyond the Great Wall, there was only rumor. The emperor needed someone willing to step into the unknown, and so Zhang Qian, a man of calm resolve and quiet intellect, began his journey. He traveled west with a small retinue, perhaps a few dozen men, and the wind at his back. Their path led across dry plains, through river valleys, and into the wild lands where maps faded into blank parchment. For months they traveled, until one day they were captured. The Xiongnu, fierce horsemen of the northern steppes, took Zhang Qian prisoner. He would remain among them for more than a decade. It's difficult to imagine 10 years of stillness, surrounded by a people whose ways were utterly foreign. He was treated neither cruelly nor kindly, just kept as a guest who could not leave. Over the years, he married, had children, learned their language. The seasons turned endlessly. Winters of icy wind, summers of open grasslands. The horizon always the same, a great sea of moving sky. But he never forgot his mission. And one quiet night, when the guards had grown careless, Zhang Qian escaped. He took only what he could carry, food, water, and a single horse, and began his trek west once more. The landscape changed slowly, shifting from grass to stone, from plains to mountain passes. Days turned into weeks. The air thinned, and the path narrowed between cliffs where avalanches slept unseen. At last, he reached the fertile valleys of Bactria in what is now Afghanistan. There, he found the descendants of the Yuezhi, not as nomads anymore, but settled, thriving, and content. They had no wish to return east, no interest in joining China's war. But though his mission failed, Zhang Qian had seen something far greater. He saw silk from China being traded in foreign markets, passing through countless unseen hands. He saw glass from the west, and horses from the Fergana Valley, animals so strong and beautiful that they seemed to breathe fire. He realized, perhaps for the first time, that the world was connected, not by politics, but by quiet exchange. When he finally returned home, after 13 years, the emperor was astonished. Many had assumed Zhang Qian was long dead. Instead, he came back bearing maps, stories, and samples of goods from distant lands. He spoke of strange fruits, shining textiles, new breeds of horses, and kingdoms with customs utterly unlike their own. It was said that Emperor Wu listened in silence for hours. Then he smiled and quietly ordered new missions westward, trade missions this time. The ancient arteries of the Silk Road began to open. You can picture it. New caravans forming, routes marked with cairns of stone, travelers moving between worlds that had never before touched. And all of it, in a sense, because one man had refused to give up. There is something deeply human in that persistence, the quiet endurance that defines not just explorers, but anyone who walks a long road without knowing where it will end. Perhaps Zhang Qian, as he sat by the fire on his final nights of travel, thought of that too, the smallness of one life, against the vastness of the world, and yet how every small act of endurance ripples outward, shaping history in ways unseen. In time, his story faded into legend. But along the road he helped reveal, the rhythm of life continued. Merchants walking, horses breathing mist into cold mornings, the creak of wheels echoing in the valleys. Through his journey, the Silk Road was not just a trade route. It became a living bridge between empires, between cultures, between dreams. Now, as the road stretches on, let us leave Zhang Qian, fading campfire behind, and turn our gaze to the hidden corners of this world, to the mysteries left behind by the Silk Road, lost cities, forgotten languages, and silent artifacts still buried beneath desert sands. If you were to travel today across the endless sands of the Taklamakan Desert, you might feel as though you were crossing an ocean without waves. Miles upon miles of pale dunes curve like frozen tides, and the sky above feels almost too wide, a vast dome of quiet blue, untouched by sound. And yet, beneath this silence, entire cities once breathed. Homes, markets, temples, and gardens, all now buried, asleep beneath the sand. Imagine walking through this landscape as an archaeologist would, your boots sinking slightly into the powdery surface, the morning sun casting long shadows across low mounds of windswept ruin. The air is dry, light, and thin. It carries the faint scent of salt and dust, as if the desert itself remembers an ancient sea. In these empty expanses once thrived the kingdoms of Loulan, Nia, and Khotan, prosperous oasis cities that formed shining jewels along the Silk Road. Their people traded silk, jade, spices, and stories. They spoke languages that no one speaks anymore, wrote in scripts that vanished when the wind changed direction. The lost city of Loulan. Loulan was once called the gateway of the western regions. For centuries, travelers stopped here to rest, to water their camels, and find shade beneath mud brick walls. The town sat beside a shimmering lake, Lac Noor, its waters reflecting the mountains that guarded its horizon. But nature is fickle. Over time, the lake began to recede, the rivers that fed it changed course, and what was once an oasis turned slowly to dust. Imagine the last inhabitants, their wells drying, their homes filling with drifting sand. Perhaps one night they looked toward the horizon and saw nothing but the pale shimmer of moonlight on dunes, realizing their home would soon be gone. Centuries later, explorers would find Loulan again, its streets filled with silence. Wooden beams still stood where roofs had once been. Silk fragments clung stubbornly to the sand. A woman's body was found there, remarkably preserved by the dry air, her hair still plaited, her face calm, as if she had simply fallen asleep. Her presence seemed to whisper of a time when this lifeless desert had been full of sound. The clip-clop of hooves, the murmur of traders, the laughter of children at the market. Now, the wind alone speaks her name. Nia, a desert garden. Farther west lies Nia, another oasis that once flourished along the ancient trail. It was a place of orchards and canals, where grapes and pomegranates grew, and wooden homes lined narrow streets shaded by willows. Excavations there revealed letters written on wooden slips, correspondence between officials and townspeople, ordinary records of life, disputes over land, requests for cloth or livestock, a soldier asking leave to return home. There is something comforting in their ordinariness, proof that even here, in a world so far removed from ours, people were preoccupied with the same small worries: food, family, fairness, and rest. The wind still brushes over the buried ruins of Nia, but now the canals are dry, the trees are gone, and the once bustling heart of this settlement beats only in whispers beneath layers of sand. The city of jade, Khotan, and there was Khotan, the city of jade and silk, where caravans from China and India would meet. Here, Buddhist monks translated scriptures into Chinese, and travelers carried ideas along with their wares: art, music, philosophy, and faith. You can picture the temple courtyards, their walls painted with serene images of celestial beings, their floors cool beneath bare feet. Monks walked slowly through the corridors, the soft sound of bells marking the passing hours. Khotan was a crossroads not only of trade, but of thought. Here, East met West, not through conquest, but through quiet exchange. A scroll for a story, a gemstone for a prayer. When the desert winds finally came, they erased the city's outlines, but not its memory. Even today, shards of pottery and tiny glass beads still surface from time to time, as if the sand, in its endless shifting, keeps offering small fragments of remembrance. A road of ghosts and echoes. As you imagine these cities, you might begin to feel the hush that lingers over the Silk Road, a feeling not of loss, but of continuity. Every footprint, every caravan track, was gradually smoothed away by the wind, and yet the road remains. It exists not in stone, but in memory, in the patterns of exchange that still shape our world. If you close your eyes, you might picture the faint glow of lanterns along a desert ridge, a caravan resting for the night, the hum of quiet voices, the rustle of fabric, and the gentle breathing of camels in the still air. This is the rhythm of the Silk Road, a rhythm older than empire, older than naps. And as the sand settles once more, let us turn now from the forgotten to the remembered, from the ruins of the common road to the palaces and chambers of the powerful, where silk was not traded but displayed, where emperors and kings dreamed of faraway lands, and where the wealth of this road was transformed into power and pride. Imagine for a moment that you are no longer walking through the desert, but through the polished corridors of a palace. The air here is cool and fragrant with sandalwood. Silk curtains move slowly in the breeze, and somewhere nearby, a servant pours tea, a thin stream of amber liquid falling into porcelain, the sound barely louder than a whisper. This is the other end of the Silk Road, the destination, where all that labor, dust, and hardship became luxury. From Chang'an in the east to Constantinople in the west, the treasures of the Silk Road found their way into the hands of emperors, sultans, and nobles. For them, silk was more than a fabric. It was status, a language of color and texture that spoke without words. The emperor's court in Chang'an, in Tang Dynasty China, the imperial capital of Chang'an, was the heartbeat of this exchange. It was a city alive with sound. The rhythmic clip of horses' hooves on stone, the soft call of merchants selling incense and jade, and the echo of bells from temple towers that marked the passing hours. Inside the palace, the world was quieter, a world of measured voices, slow gestures, and careful elegance. The emperor might rise before dawn, his robes layered in soft, patterned silk dyed with colors so rare that only the royal household could wear them. The dyes came from distant lands, indigo from India, cochineal from Persia. Every shade told a story of distance, effort, and trade. As he sat in his audience hall, attendants would fan him with feathers, scribes waiting at attention with brushes poised. Outside, musicians played softly, flutes, zithers, and the slow beat of drums. Music not to rouse, but to calm. For all its beauty, though, this was not a peaceful life. Every gesture was ritual, every conversation a subtle game of rank and obedience. Power here was as delicate as the silk it wore. One wrong word could unravel it completely. Imagine the silence after an official misspoke, a stillness heavy enough to make the air itself seem solid. In such moments, even the flutter of a moth's wings might be heard. The halls of Persia, a different kind of wealth, far to the west, in the palaces of Sasanian Persia, wealth took another form. The architecture rose in arches and domes, walls carved with floral patterns, floors gleaming with mosaic tiles in blue and gold. Here, silk was woven with gold thread. Tapestries showed lions, eagles, and mythical beasts, symbols of royal power and divine favor. Banquets lasted for hours. Guests reclined on cushions, while servants brought trays of fruit, honey, and wine. Musicians filled the air with the gentle hum of strings, and incense burned steadily, leaving trails of smoke that twisted toward the high ceilings like pale ribbons. The soundscape was different here, less formal than the courts of China, but no less grand. And yet, beneath all the richness, there was always the same dependence. Every luxury in these halls came from far away. The silks from China, the spices from India, the glass from Syria, the gold from Rome. The Silk Road connected not only markets, but ambitions. Even the most powerful rulers, in all their glory, were tethered by invisible threads to the hands of nameless weavers, miners, and traders across the world. In the Byzantine palaces, in the great city of Constantinople, silk was guarded almost like a secret. The Byzantine emperors established their own workshops, where workers, often sworn to silence, wove robes for the royal household and the church. The process was considered so sacred that commoners could be punished for wearing certain patterns. Imagine the flickering light of oil lamps on polished marble walls, the murmur of monks at prayer, and the slow, deliberate sound of silk being folded and packed for delivery. Every piece that left those workshops carried not just wealth, but symbolism, a message of divine order and imperial dignity. When an ambassador from the East arrived, he would walk beneath the vast domes of Hagia Sophia, surrounded by mosaics that shimmered like stars, and feel the stillness that only great spaces possess. It was the same stillness that filled the deserts of Central Asia, the silence that connects movement and meaning. For those who lived in palaces, life may have seemed serene, but behind every silk curtain stood a world of unseen labor. The caravan driver guiding camels through the Gobi, the weaver hunched over a loom for hours, her fingers rough from endless repetition, the merchant balancing ledgers by lamplight, calculating risks that might never pay off. Every piece of silk that brushed against a royal hand was the result of countless invisible hands before it. The elite, in their calm halls, rarely felt the sandstorms, the hunger, or the loneliness of the road. But the rhythm of their lives, the tea poured, the music played, the silk folded, was in perfect balance with the rhythm of those who carried it all. The Silk Road was never just a trade route. It was a web, delicate, interconnected, woven by effort, desire, and time. As night descends on these imagined palaces, the torches flicker lower. The servants move quietly through the corridors, and the fragrance of the evening, jasmine, rose, and smoke, lingers like a final exhale. In the emperor's chambers, the silks are folded away, the lanterns dimmed. Somewhere, perhaps, a musician plucks the last note of a lullaby. The same moon that shone on the desert caravans now casts its silver light across the tiled roofs of palaces. And for a moment, the two worlds, the weary traveler and the sleeping king, are united in stillness. A soft breeze fades in, a faint reminder of the road beyond the walls. And so, as the night deepens, we leave behind the world of silk and power. The road fades once more into the distance, a faint line of memory stretching across continents and centuries. Let us rest there for a moment before we close our eyes on this journey. In the quiet of reflection, we'll find that the Silk Road still runs through us, not in trade or empire, but in the simple, shared desire to connect, to create, and to leave something behind. The Silk Road, in all its vastness, was never truly a road. It was an idea, a thread that wove together people, dreams, and distant horizons. From the silent workshops of weavers to the shimmering palaces of kings, from the desolate dunes of Loulan to the bustling markets of Chang'an, it was a current that carried not only silk and gold, but stories, languages, and beliefs. And though centuries have passed, its rhythm still lingers. You can almost feel it in the texture of a silk scarf, in the aroma of tea brewed from distant leaves, in the echoes of words and symbols that traveled farther than their makers ever imagined. If you look back across this long, quiet journey, you might remember the people we've met, the traders and monks, the nameless artisans, the powerful and the forgotten. Each lived a life so unlike our own, yet shaped the world we know today. They worked under suns that burned relentlessly, and under moons that lit endless plains of sand. They trusted that what they carried, a bolt of silk, a pouch of spice, a story half remembered, mattered. And in a way, it did. Each small act of persistence became part of something larger, something that reached across time. Now, picture it again. That quiet path winding through the desert, a ribbon of pale gold beneath a darkening sky. The last caravan of the day settles for the night. The camels kneel, the fires are lit, and voices murmur softly over the sound of wind. Somewhere, a storyteller's voice drifts between tents, telling of cities swallowed by sand, of kings and saints and faraway oceans. The air cools, the stars appear one by one, and the road sleeps, as it has for thousands of years. It waits, patient and eternal, for footsteps that no longer come. As you rest here, in the quiet of your own room, you are, in a small way, still connected to that road. The world that once seemed endless and foreign flows quietly into your own. The spices in your food, the fabric on your pillow, the symbols in the words we speak, all carry faint traces of the Silk Road's long passage. What once took months of peril and patience now crosses oceans in moments. Yet the essence remains unchanged, our need to connect, to share, to dream beyond what we know. So let this story settle in your thoughts like dust after a passing caravan. Let its rhythm slow your breath, its stillness calm your mind. You have traveled far tonight, across deserts and dynasties, through ruins and palaces, from hardship to grace. Now, the journey can end in peace. The Silk Road stretches on without you, carried forward only by memory, while you rest in the quiet comfort of now. May your dreams be gentle, and may the echoes of forgotten worlds guide you softly into sleep. Good night.